We'll stay a bit more in the UK as London courts expected to hear the last 2-minute legal challenges to block the British government's policy to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda before the first removal flight scheduled for tomorrow. Today, the protesters are at the Royal Courts of Justice, chanting refugees have a right. If we remember, Britain agreed that deal with Rwanda to send some asylum seekers in return for an initial payment of £120 million and additional payments based on the number of people deported. Immigration lawyer Dayo Fadino joins me now. He's in London. Dayo, thanks for making it on the programme. How do you think the courts should rule on the issue today?
Good afternoon, Amarashi, and good afternoon to your guests and your audience. I am of the strong opinion that the courts, particularly the Court of Appeal, should at least rule in favor of the asylum seekers. The situation we have on ground right now is to do with fundamental human rights of fellow human beings like you and I. As much as they could be referred to as asylum seekers, they also have that right to be protected. They have the right to at least flee from a part of the world that is going through so much stress and persecution. For the High Court to have ruled against the asylum seekers was quite unjust and not proper at all. We have a situation where the Home Office, the British government, is in some kind of memorandum of understanding with Rwanda, that asylum seekers should be sent to Rwanda. So in effect, what the UK government is doing, it's outsourcing the rights that of asylum seekers under the UN Convention to do with refugees and asylum seekers. That's not proper. The UK is one of the richest countries in the world, and for that to be happening is quite appalling and not of good taste at all. So that shouldn't be happening. We also have a situation in Rwanda where the fundamental human rights of citizens in Rwanda are not being respected. The Rwandan government is known to be in harsh abuse of fundamental human rights. They are totally against gay rights, lesbian rights. So how do we actually understand the situation where, take for instance, if someone is gay, or lesbian, and that person is now sent to, that person is an asylum seeker and then sent to Rwanda. I could just imagine what kind of rights and what kind of protection that kind of person will have. So it's not proper at all. Prince Charles was caught on record to have stated very clearly that the policy is so appalling and it shouldn't be happening at all. So indeed, the court should rule very, very clearly that the action of the Home Office, the government, is irrational, illegal, and it should not be happening at all.
A very interesting perspective on that. And I know that apart from Prince Charles, there have been other, visible leaders in the UK who have also spoken against it, one of which is the Archbishop of Canterbury, who also condemned it as well. But this is an agreement already signed, between the two parties, Britain and Rwanda. So agreement is already on the table and it's already done and dusted, but does it really require the acquiescence of the asylum seekers as well? A lot of them began to receive letters from the British government about 2 weeks ago, informing them of the possible their possible deportations. You think they can challenge that for real?
Oh, sure. You see, the UK is a signatory to the UN Convention, concerning asylum seekers and refugees. They are part of that very particular group of countries, particularly civilized countries, who are indeed signatories to this very particular convention. And yes, it could be challenged by the asylum seekers. It's not even a question of whether it should be challenged. It has to be challenged because we have a situation right now where the government is now running roughshod over the rights of fellow human beings like you and I who are fleeing persecution. People do not just get onto boats to risk their lives. If indeed the situation in the country where they're coming from is not worse than actually taking chances or risking their lives in this post crossing the channel. So honestly, it should be challenged, and I think the asylum seekers have that reason and right to be able to challenge the government's move, in all respects. It's illegal, it's uncivilized concerning their rights, and a country with as rich as the UK should not be seen to be doing this. It's more or less like an ultra-right policy that should not really be allowed to flow and to fly at all.
It almost sounds like you're calling for a review of Britain's immigration laws, and because what happens today might serve as precedence to anything else that happens in the near future, whether or not those asylum seekers will be sent back to Rwanda, and then no one really knows what happens to them from there on.
Yes, indeed. You see, we're talking of the memorandum of association they have, the UK has with Rwanda. It's just a mere memorandum of association. It's not enforceable in law. So even if they have this understanding with Rwanda, and Rwanda decides to renege or to actually breach whatever term of reference of the understanding they have together, there's nothing the UK government can do about this. So in the change of rules, change of immigration rules, no. We are talking of basic fundamental human rights of fellow human beings like you and I. They cannot be seen to be sent to a country. The UK cannot be seen to offshore asylum seekers to a country that has never actually respected human rights, and then source out the UK immigration obligations under the UN Convention, outsource it to another country. It's not proper, it's not right. Most Western countries are not doing this. So you then wonder why it's the case that the UK feels that this should be the best option. The excuse they are giving to do with the fact that they are trying to prevent, people smugglers from bringing people into the UK, hence the reason why they have to embark on this draconian policy. That's just an excuse. Not every asylum seeker is jumping onto a boat and crossing the channel. There are some genuine asylum seekers that would come into the country and seek asylum, not by coming through the channels. So this is not proper, it's not right, and it shouldn't be allowed at all.
Dayo Fadino, thank you again for explaining and giving us your analysis on the issue.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Amarachi, and have a good evening. Thank you.